So, okay, so programming is the idea that
Thank you, Ash.
your personal reality creates your personality. And I think that's the best way to sum it up in one sentence. And it actually goes both ways. And I heard this initially from Dr. Joe Dispenza. But your personality, so who you are, creates your personal reality. But I believe it comes the first way, the other way around. So let's dive into exactly how your programming is created.
Okay, now you need to start taking notes. Ready?
So this is key here. You have to understand first that your programming functions almost exactly the same way as a computer. So when you get a computer, when you buy a MacBook, you have the actual hardware of the computer, the metal, the keyboard, that's the hardware of the computer. And that is your physical body. As you can see in the picture here, there's the computer or the computer hardware. And metaphorically speaking, that is your body and your DNA. It's the actual vehicle that you were born with. And I'm also going to add that in this hardware that you just default you had when you came into this world, you also have a unique soul, because I truly believe that everyone has this unique predisposition with certain personality traits. I mean, your parents would probably tell you, oh, when you were only 3 years old, you were this way. You know, parents tell those stories and you're like, really, I had a personality at that young of an age. It's true. You do have this unique soul essence, but you also have DNA and you have this body. Now, the software is what comes in after that. The software is the programming, because when you get that computer from the store, it has, for example, in a MacBook, it has operating system Mojave on it, right? That's the software, and that creates the ability for the computer to have apps. It's going to look a certain way. It's going to process algorithms. It's going to process all the different codes a certain way. So that software is essentially a lens through which you see the world. So how does that software come into your hardware? From the age of 0 to 14, the environment around you creates that software. So that comes from the school system that you're in, predominantly from our parents and all of our family members. It also comes from your friends, your peer groups, and in all the different ways you're exposed to ideas and thoughts and all the things that you do this, but don't do this. That is what creates thoughts in our childish brains. But thoughts through repetition become our belief systems. And all those belief systems function almost exactly the same way that a computer operating system does. Sorry.
That's exactly, Renee, that's exactly what we're talking about. And we're so going to give you these tools that it's amazing to, the big step like we're going to talk about is seeing that program, knowing something's off, knowing like, oh, this just doesn't align with me, but like being able to take it, it's like being able to actively go in and say, I don't want Mojave on this computer anymore. I'm going to go out and like look at a decentralized program that I can insert into my computer.
Because you cannot get rid of your past program, and you can you can start to notice certain algorithms or thought processes that are continuously running in our brains. And you can't necessarily click delete, but you can override it with new programming. You can shift that algorithm and make it something that works for you instead of against you.
And if you saw in the last one Gabby was talking about, I think she didn't really touch on it, but so from 0 to 14, obviously it's not, you had school system probably, or even if you're homeschooled, you have, this is a really big thing that even us parents as homeschoolers, we have to be really intentional about how we are educating our kids, so that because we're putting a program on them. Family and friends did, and then direct experiences. This is why trauma is so hard, but something we really do dive into, because a lot of times that trauma happened in those formative years.
So in an example, let's break this down even further so that it's not just this theoretical, oh, okay, I got these direct experiences. What are those direct experiences? How do they affect you, and why do they matter? So you've got this soul tendency, right? That's kind of your hardware, your unique soul. And after that, you're going to naturally develop an unmet need. And unfortunately, no matter how you choose to parent,
even with the best parent, you still suck.
That's okay. Anyway, no matter what your childhood was like, everyone's going to end up with an unmet need. That's why you end up as one of the different 9 Enneagram types. If you're aware of what the Enneagram types are, if you follow us on Making Mindfulness Fun, you're always going to end up with some form of I didn't receive this, and that creates your unmet need. Now, unfortunately, some people also develop trauma, because an unmet need really is a trauma, but sometimes some people are like, well, it wasn't that bad, so I'm not going to call it a trauma, but it's neurologically the same thing as a trauma. And then some people have that unmet need as a severe trauma, which makes it much worse. After that, you start to have experiences, right? And you start to realize, oh, I can fulfill this need with this experience. So now it creates this thought in your head that, oh, this experience is how I have this need met. And now it creates your belief, and that's your lens through which you see the world. And you just reaffirm that over and over and over for the rest of your life. And most people just stay there, never shift it. And they're constantly living in a mode where they have an unmet need. They think there's always a lack because, like we're going to share later, they're actually addicted to that unmet need, whether that's feelings of suffering, fear, unworthiness, all these different beliefs. You become addicted to them until you step in and shift this. So in this example, this would be like an example of me. Let's say you're born with as someone who's already very fearful of rejection. I told you guys that I was like super shy as a kid. From day one, I was terrified of people. And so theoretically speaking, the unmet need would be that acceptance. If I was such a fearful person, maybe what I really needed was acceptance, theoretically. And so then at the age of 5, you're exposed to the idea that winning makes you more accepted. That's an experience that gets my need met. So now you have the thoughts as a young child that you're like, oh, if I'm the best, then I'm good and I'm worthy. So now for the rest of your life, until you override it, you're acting constantly from the belief, well, I need to have these experiences of being the best in order to have my need met of being good and worthy.
And we're honestly, this is Gabby's example. And I told you, be compassionate with yourself. Well, there's times when I look at that and feel like such a failure as a mom, because I created that and I just didn't know any better. And I was playing off of my own, which you'll see in the next slide, my own trauma. And so I look at it now and go, wow, if I had known the Enneagram and understood programming, I would never have put her in competitive sports. Or if I did, I definitely would not have said the things that I would say as a parent back then, because all I was doing was perpetuating the issue more and more and more. She was so shy. She was attached to my leg until like
14.
Definitely till 6. We'd have a gym. If we were 5 minutes late, she'd be in tears because she felt she wasn't being accepted.
I thought people were going to judge me and they were going to shame me for being late, which was totally irrational.
And I was getting her there late because of my programming, that if I wasn't the best and doing everything and achieving more status, in retrospect, I'm like, man, I should have been so much more nurturing and just showed up 5 minutes early every single time. I would have not tried to squeeze in one more errand. I just would have done things differently. When she played soccer, I was trying, because I had a chip on my shoulder when I played soccer and I was super aggressive. I just made the assumption she should be super aggressive. And so I would bribe her $50 to get a yellow card. Yeah. Like, how bad was that?
I think
it's bad. But I didn't know any better. And so I ask her for forgiveness all the time. Like, I'm so sorry. I was so dumb. But
I think in the end, it just highlights that you have to have compassion for yourself, because you truly have to understand that nobody is perfect. Like, she can be hard on herself, but I always tell her, why would you be hard on yourself? You literally can't be perfect. Like, literally, there is no way for you to. I'm actually I think that I had the best childhood because of where I am now, because everything that came in your past brought you to where you are now. And of course, I can say that, and people will be like, oh, but you had a great childhood. So, but I think in the end, we all have to just have compassion for ourselves, that, when you look at yourself and you're like, why do I think these things about myself? And then compassion for anyone who might have instilled your programming in you, and compassion for yourself, especially if you are a parent and think that you're messing up as a parent. You're doing a great job as a parent. you just can't have ultimate perfection, but that is what makes us have this personal development journey of being able to uncover our programming and essentially fulfill our purpose.
So let's go my example. I told you that I was definitely born with a soul that was internally driven. I was just have always been, nobody needed to tell me to get the A. I just wanted to. Nobody had to tell me to behave. My dad even tells a story that he's like, yeah, you misbehaved once. I spanked you, you never misbehaved again. And things like that, I was already wired for to be good. But my parents got divorced when I was really young and they hated each other. In fact, they didn't even get in the same room or talk to each other until my wedding. So what I really needed, because I was already putting so much pressure on myself, I needed parents to kind of comfort me. And I did get a little bit of this from my dad. The irony is then my parents kind of flipped and gave me a different program, but I needed someone to just be like, you know what, just relax a little bit. It's okay. You don't have to always put so much pressure on yourself. It wasn't even so much the A, it was just always like, I just had to do so much. And somebody should have come along. Luckily, Victor did at some point in my life and gave me that permission. But let's say, in the end, what happened by 4 years old, I was so hurt, like to the feeling of, I was so good and you guys just hurt me more. Why couldn't you have nurtured me? You guys were so selfish to make it about you. Here I am being really, really good and not even just well behaved, but like kind and all this. And then you guys come in and you add all this anger. And you know what? You hurt me. Nobody is ever going to hurt me again. And that becomes this type 8 who is so resilient. You're not going to be able to hurt me. And then I always, as a type 8 or whatever this person's thought and belief becomes that you have to do it on your own. You can't trust people. You are independent.
Yeah. So essentially, that kind of covered how it's created, but to wrap that up, your personality is created by this first initial unmet need and or traumas. That creates the thoughts that you're going to have. When you have that unmet need, you're going to think, how can I have experiences that make me think certain things. And those thoughts over time become ingrained as beliefs. And a belief is a thought solidified as truth in our heads. And whatever those beliefs are, create essentially an addiction to certain feelings, because thoughts create feelings. There's no thought that is not creating a feeling. Every thought creates a feeling. So those thoughts create beliefs, and those beliefs create feelings in our physical body. And those feelings over time start to perpetuate the initial unmet need, because we're seeing a lens through the world in which I can't, like in her example, would be like, I can't trust people, so I have to be independent. So she has that feeling of people are going to hurt me. And that feeling over time starts to perpetuate the initial unmet need. And you actually start to predispose yourself to more of the initial unmet need because of the belief that you wrapped yourself into, which in part is not your fault, but keeping yourself stuck in it perpetuates the initial thing. And this was this mood, temperament, personality on the bottom is something inspired by Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, where we have this cycle that happens at first. And anytime we have an emotion, and if you're someone in your family is being in a mood, like you tell someone, why are you being in a mood? Because they've been feeling a certain way for a certain amount of hours. Well, if they start to act like that for a couple of months, we call it a temperament. We say, that person they're just like that. But if it happens for a few years, that starts to become your personality. And that's why we do talk about the Enneagram a lot, because in the end, the Enneagram actually indicates to us the certain negative emotion that you're holding on to, and it's becoming your personality. Your Enneagram you're not born as an Enneagram. Your Enneagram is created based on this cycle because of the emotion that you're predominantly feeling and are addicted to.